So I'd been planning to make a video of our Coffs trip this year, which was due to be coming up in April around Easter, a little bit after. And that was to be, I suppose, the first video I put together. But with all this coronavirus going around, that's not something that's going to happen anymore. So instead, I decided I'd make a video of a recent trip we did up to Midnorth coast, not Coffs Harbour for once. We've been trying to do a little bit of exploring around and trying new spots and see what we can find. But it turned out to be a really good trip. We've been there once before and it ended up being exactly the same. It was looking horrible to start with, and the depression starts setting in, and then one or two spots just saves the day at the end of the trip. We managed to get in the water heaps early. We were obviously all frothing. It was funny because we were going out to the spot and we're like, the viz doesn't look so great, and I think my words were, it's alright, it can't be as bad as last time. Last time we were there, the viz was horrible. I'd only brought a 1.3 metre gun, and I remember swimming around holding it like a shotgun, sort of like back near my hip, some of the shallower spots. It was real bad, so I was like, nah, it can't be as bad as last time. Jump in, sure enough, it's worse than last time. When you're floating in the water, could not even see the end of your fins. We often joke around as Spearfishing saying, I couldn't even see the end of my gun. If you stretched out, you couldn't see the end of your gun. So we jumped in a few spots trying to find some better viz, and then we finally resigned ourselves that we weren't going to find any better viz. So a couple of the boys jumped out, but Luke and I banned it, so we love it. Stayed in for a bit and did a few dives. It was pretty sketchy, actually. We had to make sure we absolutely knew where everyone was when we were diving. It was completely plausible you could shoot a fish and there could be a dive behind that, so it was a bit sketchy. So every time you did a dive, you checked where everyone was, did your dive, and went from there. But I actually don't mind diving dirty water. It makes everything feel a bit on edge, but it's a bit of the adrenaline to it. But in this case, we was feeling very edgy, so what I would do is dive down, and there was sort of this ledge going from the headland down, a bit of weed sort of poking up. So I would dive down that ledge till I got to the bottom and sort of grab onto a bit of weed, and I could just sit tucked in on that ledge, and all the life, there was a lot of bream and whatnot just swimming past. And it was actually all right. Did a few dives like that, saw a snapper, cooked it, and funnily enough, I actually pulled my line in, thought I had a fish, and then it turns out I'd shot an unsuspecting fish behind the snapper I missed that I couldn't even see. So yeah, it was pretty dodgy. Stayed there for a little bit. Had this Port Jackson. I was just thinking about the sharks. I mean, you try not to, but when you dive it in 1 metre viz, it's hard not to. Had this Port Jackson swim past, and it scared me bad. Jumped. I would have had a heart attack if I swam into a nursie in a gutter or something. We gave up on that. We left. We were like, all right, we'll try and start heading out a bit deeper, see if we find any better viz a little bit offshore. We went and checked shallow reef, but probably about that like 15 metre mark. Jumped in. There was a bit of fish life around, but nothing really much too interesting, and the viz was pretty bad. It was a little bit better on the bottom than the headlands, but still pretty atrocious. So after that, we jumped out, and so now we're pretty devastated. The viz is horrible. We've just driven all this way, jumped in, can hardly see anything. But we had these one or two good spots that we'd hit before that had saved our trip last time, that we thought, you know what, we'll go try those. Hopefully those spots are on too. So it was a bit of a boat trek to get there. Checked the viz. The viz looks bad, but it was a bit hard to tell. It was a bit deeper, diving in sort of 20-25 metres. Anyway, we sound around, we find the spot, and sure enough, it's lit up like it was last time. And so we sort of decided who was going to dive first. And diving in deeper water, it's a bit, particularly in the murk, we found it's actually pretty hard to do with safety divers, because what happens if you only dive in two people, the diver goes, and if they move at all on the bottom, or you drift on the surface or anything like that, you lose them. You have no idea where they're coming up, and you're really not going to be much help if they are in trouble unless they surface right next to you. So what we decided to do, because we're dealing with out there maybe 4 metres viz, 5 metres viz, maybe, we decided to do a 3-man dive. So we would have 2 people dive at the same time and 1 person be a safety diver. That way, if the 2 on the bottom would be together, and when they're coming up, they would be in range. And so if there was some trouble, there was a chance that one of those 2 would be able to help. And then if there was trouble on the surface, the safety diver was also there up top looking out for them. And then obviously we had our boatie on the surface keeping an eye on things. So yeah, it's pretty interesting diving that in super dirty water. But we did our little scissors, paper, rock essentially of who would dive first, and it was to be me and Mick. Gear up and we jump in. Harry put us on the spot, I think, or Luke maybe. And obviously it's a bit of a game of chance whether you actually land on the spot in deeper water in 5 metres viz, but we gave it a crack. So we dive down, Mitch is a little bit ahead of me, and then I look up and there's just maybe 4 or 5 kings on the bottom, and I see Mitch going for the shot, and I'm frothing because I'm like, great, this is awesome. I'm just going to let Mitch punch this shot, do a good shot on one of these kings. And I knew they were fairly decent and they were right on the bottom. And typically these kings, once one's shot, they hang around for maybe 30 seconds and they swim around and you can just line one up and absolutely drill one off someone else's king. So I assumed that was going to happen. So I saw Mitch going for the shot, so I waited for him. He took one. He hit his fish, but then straight away these kings just bolted. They went straight underneath me, and then I'm left like trying to maneuver myself around to get to these kings. I sort of hung around for a bit on the bottom hoping they would turn and come back in and have another look, but they were not interested. Anyway, so we headed up and we got on the surface and just all turned to help Mitch get his king in. Took a little while, pretty strong fighting fish. Originally I gave my gun to him because he wanted a second shot and I thought I'd hold the line for him and he could dive down to the second shot. I'm pulling up the mono. And I'm like, man, how much mono does Mitch have on his gun? And I realised he just had some weird real line gun. And the line was like a black, looked exactly like mono. And I felt like a bit of an idiot. So I gave him back the gun and finally got it in. Harry put in a second shot and the steak was good. I was feeling a bit pained that I hadn't got a chance to put a spear in a big king or a decent king. I hadn't seen any good kings for a while. So tee up a second dive and this time it's me and Harry. So Harry and I do a bit of a drop. We're looking for this specific ledge and we sort of don't find anything. There's nothing on the bottom. Off in the distance, we think we see the ledge we're looking for, but it's a bit far off to get to. We sort of point at it and then swim up and get back. And then Harry and I go for a second dive. And we do this dive, and Harry sort of got down maybe 10 seconds before me, so I can't really see him. He's a little bit below me. And I just hear this click of the gun go off. And I'm just like, oh, I got to get down, give another quick few strong kicks, get down to the bottom. I can't see Harry or his fish, but sure enough, there's all these kings swirling around and sort of take my time, look around. Some of them are swimming off. You can sort of lose your head when all the kings are swimming different directions in a bit of a panic. You can sort of get fish brain and just not end up taking a shot at any. But managed to line one up, took a good shot, drilled it pretty good, sort of top down, came out the other side near the gill plate, just went to the surface. It was awesome. So I pop up and everyone's frothing with Harry about his fish, and sure enough, we're on too. So we have a double fish. Harry gets his in. Takes me a while to pull mine in. Once I got off the bottom, I knew it was just sort of going crazy. I just let it tire out. I knew it was a good shot, just sort of left it there. That was the dream. We got into two good fish from Harry and I. And yeah, it was a dream. That's pretty much in 2 dives we hit those 3 fish. Then we switch over again and now Luke's in the water with Harry and we're trying to get Luke on a fish. First dive Luke takes, sure enough, there's kings on the bottom again. He pops a king. Same sort of size, but he doesn't quite get a chance to sort of pull it up off the bottom. And sure enough, he gets reefed on the bottom. And I just see, because I was boaty at this point, I see his float just tombstoning. And I drive over and I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, he got reefed by this king. It was still on, so they were doing a few dives backwards and forwards trying to get this king out. Funnily enough, it was actually reefed in the exact ledge that we were looking for. So boys did a few dives. They finally did a final dive and the king had popped off and the shaft was there and it was banana shaft by that point. Bit devastated about that one, I think Luke was, but yeah, we did all right. So that was sort of the end of the first day, and then yeah, we sort of just chilled out the rest of the afternoon. We dived a few more sort of headland spots on the way back in and set up camp for the night.